Alright guys, sorry that the call is pre-recorded this week. I actually, with school starting next week, there's a lot I have to do. So literally after I'm done trading today, I have to head to school, I have to take care of a couple of things. I'm so sorry about that. We should be back in the schedule on Friday. But yeah, I'll just go ahead and get started. Just really quick here. Right, what we covered over the past couple of Zooms was our cause. Our cause leads right to an effect, which is essentially where where we will be going directionally. And we pretty much covered this already, how we showed its hand, recovered, and then went. And that shows essentially the narrative that projected this move to the upside. So what did we say? Is because of our cause and how strong our effect was, our target would have been, our previous high. So as you can see, over the course of the past couple of days, actually this was about almost a week ago now, our target was met. The target was essentially cleared in terms of liquidity, and we had an immediate release afterwards. So cause, effect, release, right? Because obviously nothing can go up forever, nothing can go down forever. So now we are essentially recovering based on the cause. So we're in a bit of a tricky situation because we have technically a liquidity grab that took previous structure, which means that realistically we are looking at a potential continuation in terms of intraday. But when we start to zoom out, right, this still looks pretty bullish to me, right? Especially because we came so deep. It looks like we could even potentially start coming for a previous high, making this overall bullish, right? And I'm only assuming that because obviously we have a higher low based on our overall leg, high, low, retracement, unwillingness, and almost a potential break of structure. But it seems we are unclear right now in terms of overall direction, just because we failed to break an overall low. We've now failed to break a previous high. So there is no directional bias in terms of an overall directional movement. So for now, because that is the case, we can only play based on what our intraday tells us. And as intraday converts, we convert the bias. So we're sitting in a pretty interesting spot in terms of inefficiency and previous structure. So as we start zooming in, I'm very curious to see what price will do if we will. And keep in mind, this is, New York session is just starting, so we should see a very good development over the next 2-3 hours. So currently, right, if we're looking at just straight intraday, we can see that we're obviously bearish, high, low momentum, low result, meaning our direction should be technically to the downside. But we cannot assume this without seeing a clear reaction. So the issue right now in terms of structure is we've already attempted to clear structure, and we've already come back again to test our highs. So this is already attempted to give us lower movement, failed, and is continuing higher. So if we continue up here, I cannot sell here because we already showed a willingness to come lower and failed, meaning this is picking a high. So in order for me to want to take any type of position, whether it's off a wick, whether it's off inefficiency, doesn't matter. I need a reaction here. If not, I cannot justify why this will go lower. Because if we have an unwillingness here, or we already showed willingness to come lower, then fails, right, you will usually see something like that. So I don't want to, rush myself in the situation, mainly because I don't really have a preferred directional bias, but same thing here, right? Looking at EU, a bit different from DXY because we have actually seen, in my opinion, a much more clear liquidity grab in terms of, right, our structure converted here. As we said last week, we had our willingness to go higher but failed, so inevitably we go the opposite direction. So here we have taken out our previous low, we have now taken previous structure, but I'm not too appealed with the the bullish bias isn't the most appealing thing, because as you can see, we're currently about to enter a POI. So like I said, I cannot justify this position unless I have any type of true model play inside of smaller time frame. So in terms of a bullish bias, right, this could be what you're seeing, but in terms of a bearish bias, we've already shown willingness to go higher. Excuse me. We've already shown willingness to go higher, and we've already wanted to move, obviously to the upside. So once we had the unwillingness here and just the overall reversal, this now negates this entire bullish bias, and this is now seen to me as a liquidity grab to the downside. So we have the liquidity grab to the downside, which means I can more so justify a bearish movement. And as you can see, we have a clear mitigation to the downside. So who's to say right now during session, right, we don't come into a POI and continue lower, right? Obviously then, if that is negated and that is taken out, right, then we now have a bullish bias in play. So that is how I'm attempting to play this. I'm not trying to catch this low, right? I'm not just trying to essentially guess where this is going to reverse, right? Just because my intraday looks bullish, my overall does not look bullish. So my picture is a lot more clear in terms of DXY over EU, right? So looking at GU, same thing here. I mean, we've already seen, right, let's actually zoom out a bit first. So we've already essentially had a bullish liquidity grab here, but because we've taken previous structure and because we have a liquidity grab here up here from, I believe, a couple months ago, right, this is still bearish because we've taken out our overall structural leg, creating a new leg. So this, instead of seeing it as a liquidity grab, it is just the pullback of the overall leg. So as I start to zoom in, right, kind of similar to EU in terms of, excuse me, right, we've already taken preliminary structure and that eventually failed, creating a new structural range, making this my invalidation. My invalidation, right, was not met, even though we essentially took the liquidity of a previous preliminary structure point. Even that is still just a liquidity grab because our invalidation was not met. Our invalidation was not met, so eventually price has to continue lower, making this bearish. So I cannot switch that bias, right? So because that bias is in play, right, I don't want to pick a low. I don't really care to do anything like that, whether it's here or here, right? Because that's a lot less probable than converting or than looking for the continuation up here, anything like that. So that brings us to AU, which has been the most bearish out of all the pairs, right? This is one I'm still holding positions from, just because this is not giving us a reason to want to continue higher, right? Just like here, another example, willingness to go higher eventually failed, bearish liquidity grab, bearish narrative, bearish continuation. So I cannot assume any type of bullish movement until that is resolved or until that is converted. Yes, you have been given bullish opportunities, like here, right? Even here, right? But this is why we focus less on, in terms of direction, right? Me as a swing trader, I focus less on intraday moves and I focus more on overall moves, which is why you don't see me trade as often anymore. Hence why I'm still holding these swings. That's all I really need to essentially carry out with my trading. Excuse me. So with that being said, it's just the bias hasn't changed. The bias has not changed and probably won't change for a while, because this is still looking bullish, right? So I said, even though we had this here, see, you're seeing this play out right now during session. We saw the willingness to go higher, I mean lower, I'm sorry, but then that failed. So either we're going to liquidity grab here, or we can see some type of bearish break of structure. But for the meantime, this is still bullish. And until we see any type of clear structure break, I don't want to go against that, just because I want to emphasize continuations over reversals on an overall scale, right? Because even if I'm bearish intraday but bullish swing, if I find a bullish opportunity and a bearish intraday that supports the overall swing, that's how I get those big moves, right? So usually, and that's actually a question I've gotten before, and that's whether or not you should be waiting for all structural levels to convert. Well, you can, but a lot of the time you're going to miss the trade if you wait for that. And that's just because the release has already occurred, the conversion has already occurred, so we have no reason to essentially retrace any longer. But yeah, with that being said, not that long of a call today, but as you guys can see, we are still bearish on pretty much every XXX-USD pair, and we cannot assume otherwise until we are given a clear scenario, right? So we'll see what happens here. We'll see if there's an actual conversion here, right? Because you can see, I want to see if there's this conversion will lead to a break of structure, and hopefully that gives me an opportunity. But with that being said, I'll see you guys on Friday.